supreme wisdom. Student enrollment, that's what the class of God students enroll in. Supreme wisdom, I study it hard. The study of myself is the study of God. Supreme wisdom, write your letter, get your X. Supreme wisdom, that's what you'll be getting next. Supreme wisdom, some call it the lessons, but I call it life, actual facts, no guessing.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, who intervened in our affairs in the person of Master Fard Muhammad, the long-awaited Messiah of the Christians and the Mahdi of the Muslims, and I further bear witness that he raised up the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad as his messenger. No. And then he taught him for 3 years and 4 months, and then to the point that he raised him up to be the Christ. Well, when he departed from us, he became the Christ. Yeah. And that they did not leave us comfortless. When the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad departed, many people were lost. They didn't know where to go, what to do. Many people went back to the vices that they were involved in prior to coming to this truth. And Allah, in his infinite mercy and wisdom and grace to us, left us a comforter. He didn't even know he was a comforter himself until an angel came to him and reminded him of who he was, that he was the one. And so that one that I speak of is my teacher, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And in their 3 great names, I greet you with the greeting words of peace of Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
How are you all tonight?
All right, fine, sir.
Praise.
I mean, ma'am.
No, all praises.
I was about to say, sir, too.
All praises to Allah. Inside the woman, inside every woman there's a
right.
man.
I think because I saw the word man up there, I was thinking like.
How about that? Okay, so we're okay, but praise be to Allah. So glad to have you out again tonight. And we're going to finish up.
I saw Brother Brad Monday night.
Monday night, yes. Yeah. I heard that he was, Brother Ahmed had talked to him and told him to come out. Yeah. And whatnot. Because, you know, he's in the military. Yeah. So, you know, he's still working on trying to get, you know, discharged from the military. Yeah. But when you see him on Mondays, encourage him to come out on Wednesdays. Because I know he loves the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Praise be to Allah. Happy Savior's Day, everyone.
Happy Savior's Day.
Do you know Savior's Day is around? Yes, praise be to Allah. So have we thought about going to Savior's Day?
Yeah, I've been thinking about it.
All praises due to Allah. I think it's going to be a very, very interesting Savior's Day this year.
I know it's going to be.
It is. And I hadn't heard anything about the graduation.
Right, you're right.
I'm not sure what exactly is going on. As we get information, we'll disseminate it to you, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, if there is a graduation, we will have a graduate.
Yes, we will have a graduate if there is a graduation.
Yeah.
You know what? You didn't go through graduation anyway, huh? Mm-hmm. We need to have a graduation for you. What month did you graduate?
I don't know.
I think it was July, maybe. I don't know, but
well, how long you got to be a member before you graduate?
Soon as you register, that's what you meant. When did you register?
Yes, graduate. Yeah, when you register.
Oh,
what month?
I registered in about you told me that
when you recited.
After I answered the question.
Yes, right. Sir.
July.
Yeah, July. I thought so.
Yeah.
Okay. So you need a graduation.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, you're right. Praise be to Allah. Well, we need to see about trying to get you one. If Chicago has one or not, because everybody should have a graduation.
That's right.
All right.
Yes, sir. It's special.
Very special.
Yes. So we're gonna work on that. Okay.
All
but
right.
still, try if you can to get to Savior's Day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that being said, once again, I just want to say Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
And we're going to finish up this week. And, you know, I had really, really big plans to try to get all the way to the creation of the sun with this 4-week talk. But unfortunately, unfortunately, we're not gonna make it that far. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna put a pin on it with who is the original man, dealing with the wombed man, the second self of Allah.
No.
And then we'll come back, the next rotation that I have, and we'll deal with the sun.
No.
Because I can't just rush through it in one talk, because it's some deep science in that creation
I
of the
can
sun.
imagine.
Oh yes, you know the Quran has a surah called the sun,
Yeah.
right?
Some,
Yes,
Shams.
Shams. Yes, so we don't want to rush through it because Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad was curious about the sun. He was so curious about the sun that he asked his teacher, the Most Honorable Master Fard Muhammad, about the sun, to the degree that he told him, if you keep asking me about the sun, I'm going to stop teaching you.
No more.
So the sun is very interesting, so we will get to that. So let us go ahead and finish out tonight. And this week we will cover, I guess I didn't look at my things, how they came out, but we're going to deal with, I want to show us a video where the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan speaks on the nature of man and woman, which speaks into the subject that we have tonight. And of course, I want to deal with the oneness of Allah, Tawheed, and I want to deal with duality and polarity. And we're going to deal with those as it relates to Allah's second self, him bringing from out of himself the second self, which is the female. Now, the question that we've been trying to ask since week 1 is, why is the woman the only heaven that man will have? What is heaven?
State of mind.
It's a state of mind.
Mhm.
What is the Jannah?
Jannah. The paradise.
It's a paradise. What is paradise to you? What will paradise look like to you?
The only thing I can say is for the answer to that question, and I got to go back to the Quran.
Okay, it's a good place to go back to.
The hereafter or the gender is at the foot of the mother.
Teach, brother, teach.
Yeah. Yeah.
Praise be to Allah.
That's all I can say.
That's all you can say.
Yeah.
Okay.
About that.
Maybe
About that.
something else will come out as we go along.
Yeah.
So sisters, why is the woman the only heaven that a man will have? And I asked him the question about what is heaven. She said a state of mind. What is heaven? And why is the woman connected to it? The sisters look like
The secrets of
I know, right?
The secrets of Allah is contained within the woman.
the secret is contained within the woman.
Well, I'll say going, not, you know, your mind state is going to produce your physical state.
Yeah.
And so the heaven is a state of mind, but it's also a state of being fit, you know, in the physical realm. But it comes out of the mind. And so with that being said, I'll say a lot of times in an environment, the woman sets the tone of the environment.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so however she is, you know, the environment will reflect how she
Okay.
thinks, how she feels, how she is.
Okay.
Heaven
Yes,
is,
sir.
heaven is just not any state of mind. It's a peace. It's a peaceful state of mind. Yeah.
You know, the definition for the word peace in the dictionary, it means absence of war, but it has to be more than just absence of war. So when we talk about peace, you know, we talk about heaven, the question is, do we really understand what that means?
No. No man.
No. And if you could imagine what peace would be like, what could in your mind, could you imagine peace being like?
Not having to worry about bills.
Yeah.
Right.
Having to worry about, it's not necessarily just the bills, because you know
Nah.
somebody has to have a job, you know, but you know, literally the way the construct is now is you work enough just to keep your lights on,
Yeah.
put food on the table,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
whatever else you may want,
Mm-hmm.
just to go back to work.
Right.
Yes.
You don't have time to, you know, develop yourself a lot of time. You know, if like for example, me being a single mother, you know, that takes away from, you know, my child rearing her.
Absolutely.
You know, so you know, especially if the woman's out of the house. On top of that, you know,
Yes.
you know, so if she has to go work a 9 to 5 or 12 hours, depending on what kind of job she has, you know, and have to come home, still have to cook, you still have to take care of the children. Oh, especially if you have more than one, you know,
Yeah.
you have to, you know, make sure you spend time with your spouse, because that's just as important, not just the children, you know, and you know that takes part of that heaven away, because you don't even get to enjoy life. You always have to worry about, I gotta go to this place, I gotta go to this place, I gotta pay this, I gotta pay this, the children need that, the children need, so I have to work just to be able to maintain a necessity. So it's not even just wants, you have to maintain things you need. You make enough just to keep the stuff you need.
Just to get by.
And so how can you know, have a peaceful state of mind when you're always thinking about, I gotta survive?
That's interesting. That's interesting. I'm gonna speak to that because, you know, I'm teaching a sociology class now. And, you know, in teaching that class, I have come across something that I found very interesting that could speak into that. Because I asked the question, was peace just the absence of war? And I want to deal with that because there is an aspect of that. And we'll deal with this question for a second, because oftentimes in the nation, we say things that have just become platitudes. Yes, ma'am.
Well, that kind of just triggered a thought. When you
Okay.
said peace, about what they said the definition of peace is, the absence of war. But, you know, in this time, really, we at war with everything.
Yes.
So, you know, the food industry. So if I got to constantly think about, you know, really, if we're not producing anything. So really, right now, there's nothing that's good for us.
No.
Nothing. Even the things that's supposed to be good,
Yeah.
it's not good. So we're at war with that. I can't be, you know, I got to be concerned with, you know, cancerous foods.
That's right.
You know,
Yeah.
That's right.
you know, at war with, you know, media. You know, we're literally, from the time we wake up, even in our sleep, at a constant state of war.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, it's just, we can really get deep into this whole concept of peace and the whole concept of heaven and what it looks like. Because like you said, even in your sleep, you're still at war. Because, you know why? We're being bombarded by electromagnetic frequencies, low electromagnetic frequencies from all of our electronic devices, our cell phones.
Yeah.
Even the sockets that are in our rooms emit a low frequency. And so what that does is that the enemy has understood how to actually send messages on these low frequencies.
Yeah.
That can mess up with your, you know, mess your rhythms up, your circadian rhythms. It can send subliminal messages. Everything has a location device on it. So they can tune in to where you are. Even if you turn off the location, it still can find you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, you know, they can target you.
So knowing what heaven is, or paradise, or anything like that, is hard to conceive, because we don't know, we've never experienced that. This is like having freedom. We don't know what that looks like.
And that's where I want to go.
And the thing is, even what we may consider free or heaven is a picture that the enemy painted. What we may think from movies or things like that, how he's pictured what, you know, painting a picture of what heaven looks like. So even with that, it's still not even a picture of our heaven.
Right, right. And I absolutely agree with that. And so we need to figure this thing out. We need to figure out how can we produce heaven? How can we produce this paradise? And of course, the woman is very key to that.
Yeah.
And so with that being said, I'm gonna bring something up, and psychology, they have something called conflict theory, okay? And conflict theory has to do with, in society, you have, you know, say for instance, W.E.B. Du Bois dealt with conflict theory. And he talked about the double consciousness of black people. How, you know, you're black, and you have a certain experience as being a black person.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're supposed to be an American, so in your mind, you're thinking that you are supposed to get all the rights and privileges of an American, but yet and still you're living in America, you're not getting the rights and privileges. So you have this dual consciousness of one of being black and another one supposedly being American, and then they're in conflict with one another. Because to be an American, by definition, as it was, is that it was a white male from Europe.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we don't fit that definition, so our mind is really, we really are living in a double consciousness, where you're two things but yet neither.
Yeah, bipolar.
A bipolar existence. And so there's something else called role conflicts. You know, everybody in life plays a role.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, we have the male and the female, the husband, the wife, and the children. So everybody in the family plays a role. And so when you have role conflict, and conflict, you can look at that as another thing like war, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
War, conflict. Now, Sister Demoiselle was saying that you're always having to, as a single mother, even as a married woman, you're always having this tug of war that's going on with you. Because most of all, it's based on what said role conflict.
Right.
So let's say this is Demoiselle right here. Demoiselle. Now, one, she is a, you say me, yourself, okay? Then you have you
Yeah, that's not her name, Miss
as a mother, okay? Then you have as an employee, and then you have self-employed. Well, let's say business owner. Let's say business owner.
That's right. I'm a business owner.
Business owner. And then you also have your role as a lieutenant, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have your role as a daughter.
Ooh, I'm
You have
tired
your
of
role
it
as a
already. Just looking at it like that.
Yeah.
That's a lot of stuff.
Okay, you have me, mother,
Auntie.
auntie,
No, not so.
and then of course, you know, we're gonna add in husband somewhere here too. Not right now, but inshallah.
You mean white?
I mean,
She's gonna
white.
be a white.
Yes. I was thinking about taking care of her husband. White.
So you gonna be a
Okay.
husband.
So see, that goes
That's
against
role
role conflict right there. That goes
Raise
against-
them,
But you
raise them
understand?
women to be husbands one day.
Oh, roll.
All of these roles are in conflict with one another, okay?
Mm.
So what's happening is that if she has to do all of these things, then, you know, either herself is not going to get what she needs, her child is not gonna get what they need, her job, she may be too tired because she's spending time with her child or at the mosque doing her lieutenant duties. So role conflict is a problem. And right now, she's, of course, a single mother, so she has to play also father in many cases. So you have to do all of these things, and that creates a situation where you're not at peace, you're not at equilibrium. So when you add in the husband or the man into the equation, then he has all of those roles that he has to balance.
Mhm.
And then there's no, there's no equilibrium. So what we have to do is that we have to figure out how to deal with the role conflicts and make it where that they're balanced.
Mhm.
That's why Allah put the marriage as the first institution.
Mhm.
Just think about that. Of all the institutions, he could have put an educational institution, he could have put business, he could have done anything, but marriage is the first institution that Allah created. Because it is the base unit of a nation.
Yeah.
Family is the base unit of a nation. And so if everybody is able to properly balance their roles within the family, then you have peace. And that's really what it is when you're able to do all the things that you have to do without having to compromise one for another. So how do we do this? By working together.
Right.
So if you had the man in the equation, perhaps you didn't have to, be an employee, right? Most definitely you wouldn't have to be a father.
Yeah. Cross that up first.
You wouldn't have to do that. You still would have some of these other roles, but you could balance it a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you can bring it into priority. And so with the man, his primary job is to provide and maintain for his family, right?
Mm-hmm.
But see, if his wife is happy at home and he comes at home and she's balanced and she's playing and doesn't have these role conflicts, then when he comes home he finds peace within her.
Yeah.
Because she's the peace. The woman is the only heaven, the only peace that the man would have. So she has to be in her proper role, and she has to be a balanced person. Okay? So, I'm telling you, a happy wife makes a happy life.
Yeah, mashallah.
So this is, sir?
And that's the man's responsibility to keep her, that frame alive.
That's right.
Peaceful frame alive.
You know what makes a woman at peace? And a lot of what she needs from a man is security.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay? So she just needs security. He doesn't have to have all the money in the world.
Mhm.
He does not have to have all the muscles in the world. He
You
doesn't
gotta
have to
be
be
the
the best
smartest
of the
in the
men.
world.
He has to have a plan. He has to have a plan. And even if he can't get something for her that she really desires, if he desires to get it for her and he's put forth a plan to make it happen, that'll be enough for her
Yeah.
for a time.
Mashallah.
So the man, has to give her security. Her mind needs to be protected.
Yeah.
She needs peace of mind. And that's where he secures her first, in her mind. And when he does that, he's really created for himself a very good condition by giving her that. And a man, from what I understand, I'm not a man, but men, from what I understand, they need admiration. They want to feel like their woman, holds them in the highest of esteem.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That there is no man other than, Allah
But you
himself.
got to earn that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because, if you say the black man is God, and God says he's what?
Come on.
A jealous God.
Yeah.
He doesn't want no other man above him, except Allah. Okay, so here, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said the answer to the originator's problem. He wanted a different human being than himself, so he studied himself. He made a woman by studying himself, he says. He made a woman, secondly, so that this would solve his problem of the search of another man.
No.
Okay? He was lonely. He wanted consolation. Even the originator wanted somebody that he could find peace of mind in.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
excuse me. Now, this is a video by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. It's going to take us about 13 minutes to go through it, but he hits it. Yeah, I can't say it better than him, so I'm going to let my teacher. Yes, ma'am.
I was listening. I want to make a comment
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
on that. And just the point that Allah, wanted a companion, so he made one. So he put in work. That's the point I'm trying to make. He didn't, hope and beg and, do all this other. He made one
No.
Yeah,
out of nothing.
really out of himself.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So he had to be what he wanted
Yeah,
to get what he wanted.
well, that's called the law of attraction. Thank you.
So, like the Holy Prophet Muhammad said in his farewell address, O ye Muslims, your women have the same rights that you have, and you have a duty to protect the women's rights.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. I'm telling you, and I know that's one of the issues, like I said before, we're gonna have to solve the problem of male-female relationships in the black community.
Yeah.
And part of it is that there are role conflicts. And nowadays, what has happened is that the men are playing the roles of the women and the women are playing the roles
Right.
of the men, and it's all confused.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's wherein most of our problems come in,
Yeah.
is that we're confusing roles. And Allah has given us a divine order, and once we come into divine order with His laws, with what He has made us, like Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us, that the power of a thing is found in its nature.
Right.
So if a woman is operating in her nature, which is the nature of femininity,
No.
then she will actually become more powerful.
Yeah.
With this feminist movement,
Yeah.
the white woman has come around and said that in order to gain power, that I must be like the man.
Mm-hmm.
And so, us always thinking that white folks got to be right, we fall along right with them with this feminist movement. And so now, the black woman is thinking that, she has to, replace her man. And now they come up with this, well, not now, but this independent black woman complex.
Right.
No.
There's no such thing as an independent black woman. That doesn't exist. She is not a woman without her man.
Yeah.
And that's just it. And so, but we follow white folks and we think that, perhaps they're right. And
They
so,
set the standard.
and they took us all the way out of our nature.
Right.
Yeah.
All the way out of our nature. So you wonder why we don't have power anymore. Because we gave up our nature.
Yeah.
Same thing with the black man. Listen at these white men talking about they're going to be stay-at-home dads.
Right.
And things like that. That's absolutely crazy. And so this is why we in our communities are even having more problems on top of the problems that were created by Willie Lynch, on top of the problems that were created as a result of slavery, where the black woman was trying to protect her male child from being beaten or lynched. So we have all these problems we have to contend with.
Because now we just straight up made them soft.
Yeah, we did. We made them soft.
Now we the protector, and he not.
Yes.
That again,
And-
role conflict.
If I would have, I could have done this, but I wasn't thinking that the discussion was going in this way. But the whole thing in McDonald's
Right.
in Florida,
Right. Yeah.
when you had a sister, she's on the smackdown on this white man,
Yeah.
and the black man just
Pulled her off the white man
They just looking
and gave him a burger.
and gave him a burger.
Huh?
Did you hear about this? A white man came in McDonald's.
Oh, he hit 2 black women.
And he comes up to the counter, and there's this little particular black woman
Yeah.
that's over there, and she said that something was about straws, that she could not give him another straw. Something was a law that he could only get one. They didn't put him at the counter or something like that. This white man reached over the counter and snatched that black girl up. And when that black girl, when he snatched her by her clothes,
Yeah.
that girl put the smack down on that white man. Was beating him like
I
Mike
think
Tyson.
I did see that.
Yes. And so,
the
what-
little sister
the little
said,
sister,
she was born in a family of boxers.
she was born.
Yeah, she took boxing. They said that.
They
That she did
said
boxing.
she took boxing, but I didn't know that she was smacking him like she did, like she had been a professionally trained boxer. Yes, ma'am.
But not only in that aspect, but like Dr. Wesley mentioned, like the real way we weaken the black man is by making him dumb.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what took his power, because what was one of the biggest things that slaves can do?
Read.
Read.
Yeah.
And so not only was she protecting him from, but reading, being knowledgeable will give you courage.
Oh yeah.
Will give you the strength to
Yeah.
stand up for what is wrong, because you can
Yeah.
logically see that it
Yeah.
doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And so having sense, like if those males who watched that happen would have thought it out logically and reasoned, they would have seen that, they would have been in the right to protect her.
Right.
but somewhere in their thinking, some type of flawed logic, they're like, you know, for whatever reason they didn't jump in, they could have been like, I don't want to lose my job.
At
You know,
McDonald's.
right, exactly.
At McDonald's.
Or, you know, they could have, who knows, they could have been like, she's overreacting. And I'm not throwing out things that make sense, but what I'm saying is that, you know, we sit and say, oh, a real man, because he's strong and has muscles, would have stood up. But like you said, it's not just about the muscles. Like somebody in their right mind
But you
would
know,
have stood up.
the elephant, the parable about the story about the elephant that was tied as a little small elephant, a baby elephant, and it was chained, and so it could only go so far before the chain would jerk it back.
Yeah.
But the elephant was so accustomed to having that chain on its leg that when it grew up to an adult elephant, it wouldn't go any further. Then all they had to do is just pull the chain a little bit, and they could have broken free. But because the chain was here and not on the foot, and that's what's going on with our people. It is bred in us, and I'm say this, and then I'm gonna go on to the minister's what he has to say about male-female relationships. But what has happened is that, and I saw that I had to study where they had studied with mice, and what they did is that they had pansies, these flowers. And so every time that the mice would get next, male mice, that's what they used.
Yeah.
Every time they would get next to this pansy or smell this pansy or whatever, they would shock them with an electric shock. Then they produce offspring, and from the offspring down the male line, they found out that that same inherent fear of the smell of pansies was in their genetic makeup. And so they said, according to this study, that the offspring of the rat that initially got shocked, they didn't have to shock the offspring. It would, when it smelled pansy, it would automatically run.
Yeah.
And so that's what's going on with us in some respects. That not only is it, you know, psychological, it may even be a genetic, something genetic that's being passed on in terms of fear for the authority figures in this world that cause us not to respond like a normal person would respond. A normal person.
Yeah.
But you have to say that there has to be some brain that something is not right.
It's like, you know, respond to stimuli. That's one of the ways they can check and see if you're alive.
Yeah.
They do something to you, expect a response. And so it's like, you know, when you have the doctor, they hit you on the knee,
That's right.
you're supposed to jump up.
Yeah, right.
We people who's getting hit on the knee is just sitting there blinking like, when you gonna hit me?
Right.
We don't even register that we've been
Hit already.
stimulated. Yeah.
That's why we'll sit back and take a cell phone picture of somebody being shot and won't even step in. How do you do something like that?
Brain damage. And like I said, and it's really prevalent more in the males, and that's why you're seeing a lot of lately in this new wave of activism. You see a lot of black women on the front lines, and black women are on the front lines, and they're looking like, where's our black men? How could you not stand up? It only makes sense. So it has created a condition where, in some respects, the woman is like in her right mind halfway, a little bit, a tiny bit. She's not as darkened, you know, in the dark.
She's responding to stimuli like a natural person,
Right.
But because of the role conflict.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying, and that's what's producing the role conflicts is that, like you said, that operant conditioning of the fear is producing a role conflict.
But it could also be from a genetic standpoint because the woman in slavery protected her male child.
Right.
So she wouldn't, so he wouldn't, so we may have a natural inclination.
No, we do.
It's not even something that's taught. It just may be passed down through a collective consciousness, genetically, that we're gonna automatically protect the black man, and what happens is that we produce a weaker offspring.
True, but I think it's still taught because it's not like people.
I know it's taught.
People are not out here.
I know it's taught.
People sit to this day are having conversations with their little black boys about how you behave when the police
That's
come
right.
around, even though you don't do nothing wrong.
That's right.
And that's not genetic. No, people are saying this.
Well, I'm saying that it could be a combination thereof.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and look at what the minister says, and I think he talks about some of that in this this talk.
You
I
have to
know
do this.
there's a way you can play it from here. Which one of these buttons is it?
Probably the play button.
Let's see. Well, that wasn't the button. Well, let's see if that's the button. That's not the button.
It's all good. We got you on this side.
What you doing? I was about to press it.
Oh, okay. Y'all saw that. Don't be looking at my graphics. It's already. You have it over there. It's pointed out now.
Oops. I was trying not to get in the camera.
Like, come on. So I ain't do nothing different. Same thing.
Y'all better buckle your seatbelts because the minister goes hard out here.
You said on here, on there, on everywhere.
He goes so hard out here. He's at Reverend Willie Wilson's church.
Oh, yeah. There we go. The mouse was disengaged. Just leave it there. Screen is big enough. We got it.
Is he connected to the internet?
Oh.
Oh, where you at?
You may have to do a little editing on this one.
Like, no edits.
Look, my
Just don't
camera,
say
my
nothing-
face about to be
just-
right in the camera.
Just don't say nothing of relevance while she's standing right there. Okay, so make sure you save your comments. And then I can just do a jump screen and we're gonna be like this and then we good. So,
Well, I was stepping away, so when I step
Oh,
away-
look at that. It's in airplane mode. That's not good. Yeah, that would explain why the internet wasn't working.
Okay, well, I was stepping away. I need to go.
I'll make this one.
Now I want to look at the nature of man and the nature of woman. Because unless we know the nature of a thing, we don't understand the actions of that which we're looking at. Y'all all right? Look at the Bible. It says, after God made the man, he said, multiply, replenish the earth, subdue it. And he gave the man power and dominion over the fowl of the air, the fish of the sea, and every creeping thing that crawls upon the earth. Do you know why there's not a lot of men in the church, but there's a lot of men in Union Temple Baptist? You don't see men like this in the church. You don't see men like this in church. Church got a lot of old men, tired men. Am I telling the truth? The youth are in the street. They're not coming to church, but they come here. What is it about a man that makes a man attracted to the gospel? And what is it about a woman that makes her so attracted to the gospel and to the man Jesus? Yes, sir. Oh, brother. Come on, come on, come on. If by nature God gave man power and dominion, then men cannot be a man unless he has power in order to exercise dominion. Yes, sir. That's the nature of every man. And whether you agree with me or not, in his nature, he knows he's supposed to have some power. Yes, sir. And he knows he's supposed to have rule, especially in his own house. And therefore, if he does not have the knowledge of how to establish his rule, yes, sir, and the woman see him weak and ineffective, then she look at him and say, I ain't bowing down to this. what to do for him. So it becomes a game that we play. You use your nature as a woman to put him in a condition where you can manipulate him and guide him around by his nose. So the Bible said, children are their oppressors, and women rule over them. That's not the nature in which God created this thing to go. And she can't respect no man that she rules. I'm going to say that again. She cannot respect any man that she rules because her dominion is over children. And when she rules you, you become her child. And that's why, take it or leave it, and that's why your favorite word is that MF word. Because she's your mother instead of your wife. You wasn't looking for a wife because when you look for a wife, you're looking to carry out a responsibility and a sacred duty. But when you're looking for a mother, you're looking for somebody to nurture you and take you by the hand and stroke you and do all kind of childish things to comfort a sniveling, crying little black baby. And that's why adultery is in the house of the black man. That's why women don't stay in our bed. Anybody's bed will do because she's still on the hunt. Not for Red October, but for a black man in September. The nature of the black man, the nature of all men, is to multiply, not sexually. I mean, that's part of it. You know, that's so academic. You don't have to have a PhD degree to do that kind of multiply.
That's what says the difference.
But when you say multiply, you have a multiplier, a multiplication, and a product. God said multiply, replenish the earth. He's telling man, look at what I put in you. Look at what I put around you. You are the multiplier. This is the multiplication. Now bring you a product. That's the nature of man. He's to multiply. He's to be a producer. And in productivity, he finds expression for the gifts of God that are within his being. And in finding the gifts of God within his being by becoming productive, he then glorifies his creator. Man is the glory of God. But if man is not productive of good and of righteous civilization, what does he need a woman for? That's our problem. We want a woman, but we don't want to know how to produce. And you're taking fire into your bosom when you want a woman, but you don't want to know how to become productive. Because whether she understands it or not, she's looking for you to be productive. Her nature is to help you. If you're doing something, but she can't help you to do nothing. So if you're doing nothing, don't bother with a woman, because you're taking fire into your bosom. She'll burn you in the night and burn you in the day. Come on, baby, light my fire. She'll light it all right. Because a non-productive man, I don't care how handsome you look, you become ugly to your mate. Listen now. That's your nature. What is her nature? In the Bible, God said he created the woman from the man to be the help meet. Not M-E-A-T. But the M-E-E-T. Yeah, what that mean? Help me. Help me. It means that God has given man a duty, a responsibility to become a producer. You don't produce without help. And you can't find a better helper to do anything in this world than a woman who believes in her man. Now, what did God put in you? See, your nature is to nurture, and your nature is to comfort and console. So the Quran says, in the woman, he should find peace and quiet of mind. Not quiet of body, but quiet of mind. How do you rest his mind, sister? When that man is productive, when he comes home, he needs to rest and draw strength again to go back and produce some more. So God gives him a woman who knows how to comfort and console. And look, not only knows how, happy to do it because he's so productive. Here comes that man of mine. Here he comes. Get it all ready for him because he's coming on home. Wait a minute, children. I got to get pretty for my man. He's coming home. She ain't coming to the door looking like the wreck of the Hesperus. She get herself together, perfume herself. When he gets up to the gate, he can smell the biscuits in the oven. You said, wait a minute. I'm a professional woman. And you're a failure. Don't tell me nothing about your profession. You're a failure if you can't keep a man. No profession can make you happy. No profession. Call yourself whatever the hell you want to. If there ain't a man in your life to make you happy, your profession can never do for you what God made man to do for you. Now look here. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us that the only heaven for man is woman. I'm going to say that again. You want to go to heaven? Heaven ain't where you go sit down. accustomed to a non-productive food that is masquerading in the garments of a man.
Well, there you have it. I can't say it any better than that. So, anybody have any comments on that before we move forward?
I have one.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember on what part.
Here, come this way.
Let me think.
I can't remember.
Yes, ma'am. Any comments? Sister Gabrielle?
I'm trying to think what I said. Anyway, that's gonna get off on the whole other topic anyway. We dealing with the womb man, let's go.
Okay. Brother Nana, any comments on anything the minister said?
Yeah, because he said, all in a nutshell.
Pretty much. So, you know, with that being said, I mean, he explains how we can produce heaven, you
Yeah.
know, in our homes, and how that the woman is the only heaven that the man has, and that's why everybody playing their roles, okay? So he really went and broke down the roles so that we won't be crossing roles, and then we won't have role conflict in ourselves because we're taking on other than ourselves. We're weighing other than ourselves, and that we're, you know, carrying too much of a burden when we shouldn't be. So, we're dealing with the wombed man, and Allah creating from himself a second self, and a self that has a womb that is able to, that he was able to use throughout the annals of time, or the annals of time, where he could produce a perfect man through the womb of a woman. As we said before, that the womb of a female is the only place in the universe where human life can be produced. And we know that God appears in the person of a human being, in the person of a man. And every man, every person that has been Allah, or the best knower of their cycle of time, was produced through the womb of a female. So, we want to deal with the whole concept of, you know, this happening. How did this happen? How did Allah produce from himself the second self? So in the Holy Quran, I want to go back to the whole concept of oneness of Allah, or Tawheed. And it says here, in the name of Allah, beneficent, the merciful, say. He's telling us to say. He, Allah, is one. Allah is he upon whom all depend. He begets not, nor is he begotten, and there is none like him. So if he begets not, or he's not begotten, let's say this, if he's not begotten, that means that he had to be the creator of himself, right? And it says that he's one. So everything that we see in the known universe comes from that one, okay? And he begot himself, well, he created himself, he didn't beget himself. And there's none like him. So the oneness of Allah, Tawheed. And of course we said that this is the single most important concept upon which Muslims' entire faith rests. The oneness of Allah. But it's so deep, you know, when we think about it. And then when you you have this concept, but you juxtapose next to it the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad that teaches that there is one human being who carries the title of the Supreme Being
Yeah.
for a cycle of time. And so when you put those two things together, we have to start, really thinking about how are those things, how do they jive together? How can we reconcile the concept of the oneness of God with the concept of God coming in the form of a human being? And then we said that one God, who is the originator, brought from out of himself a second self. So
Yeah.
how do we square that up? How do we reconcile that this originator brought from out of himself a second self?
Yeah.
And let's look at it. Isn't that a nice graph?
Yeah.
Right here we have
Yeah.
the atom of light that is sparkling in the darkness, the triple darkness of space, right? And of course we know that atom of light was Allah's creating himself out of nothing. Okay? There's an atom there, but that atom is considered nothing because it has no aim nor purpose. And of course we know according to the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, now we don't know how long this atom was there. We don't know anything prior to about 82 trillion years ago. But we know that from 82 trillion years to 76 trillion years ago, that this atom of life continued to develop, and just think about it. I mean, we can't even really imagine a trillion years, much less 6 trillion years to develop a human form. And we think about how it is perfect. It says that Allah made man in the best of mates, in the best of moments. Think about if you had 6 trillion years to put everything in a proper place so that it functioned perfectly. If you had, just like with, and this is off the subject, but on the subject, standardized tests. A lot of people have a problem with passing standardized tests successfully. It's because there's a time limitation on it, okay? If you gave a person an unlimited amount of time to solve a problem, or a very long time to solve a problem, they can have 100% on every test. So with Allah having taken 6 trillion years to come from, this atom of life into the human form, it was enough time for him to be able to perfect the human mate.
Yeah.
Now, with the 6 trillion years that it took, and we talk in the Quran, it calls it 6 periods, right?
Yeah.
6 periods. In the Bible, it calls it what? 6 days. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said this 6 trillion year period was broken up into 3 periods of 2 trillion years apiece. Now, there's 3 periods also jives with how the woman has 3 what? Or it's not 3, but she carries the baby for what we call trimesters. They break the pregnancy up into trimesters, okay? So you have 3, 3, and 3. So you have the first 3 months, then you have the second 3 months, and then you have the point where it's born. So you have 3 periods, just like you said with the 3 periods that it took for the originator to develop himself in the triple darkness of space. There's a correlation, a one-to-one correlation with the human being as we know it. It took 6 trillion years here. He reduced the creation of a human being from 6 trillion years to create the first prototype. prototype down to what?
9 months.
9 months.
That's a big difference. That's some high science.
High
mathematics.
science. High science. And then instead of using the cold darkness of space, what he uses is the warm womb of the female, which replicates that same darkness of space. And
With
remember,
the exception of the cold.
it would be exception of the cold. Think about
Because
it.
even cold being cold and dark produces a certain condition
A nature.
versus being warm.
That's right. Loving, nurturing, you know, so it's just this profound. And I'm telling you, this is not some made up fairy tale. You can literally begin to start now with the advent of the World Wide Web and the information age. You can go and start verifying these things. That's what's up. And there was no World Wide Web when Master Fard Muhammad was here. Well, it may have been, but not like we know it today.
Not that.
Because he had access to information that, you know, vaults of information.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, which it will be comparable to the World Wide Web. But the point is that when he brought us this information, the way that people received or got information wasn't as quick and easy and accessible as it is now.
Yeah.
We can go and
You
confirm
go to
this
the other
if
side
we
of
need
the
to.
world. Right.
Yes. I mean, but
With
if
the
you,
click of a
if you
button.
just want to, but I'm just saying for anybody who's watching, and you all, that we could just save a lot of time and just really just start right here with this foundational teaching that he gives us and then grow from it. But we take a lot of time going back, trying to verify with the white man so that we could be okay with it ourselves. But I'm telling you, this man, and I have studied this for 23 years, this man has taught us exact and correct. There is no error in what he's taught us. If we just started where he's left us and moved forward, we will be so far beyond this world, it will be unbelievable. Okay, moving along. Student Minister Abel Muhammad says that the principle of femininity is on the atomic level is based upon a law. The principle of femininity on the atomic level, you know, where the atoms, the law of polarity or opposites, which is rooted in the creation of the female by the originator. Every atom has protons and neutrons in the nucleus and has electrons on the outer orbitals or outer shells, okay? So we are positive and negative. So she's saying that these opposites exist in the very atom itself. So let's continue to read. One definition is that everything is dual. Everything has poles. There are two sides to everything. Things that appear as opposites are in fact two ends of the same thing, such as heat and cold are varying degrees of the same force. The Holy Quran reads, Allah created everything in pairs. The male and the female energies are necessary to all life. Allah was searching for another self. He found it within himself. So within the very atom itself is duality. If you didn't have duality, the atom wouldn't be able to spin. It's the interplay between the protons, which are positive, and the electrons, which are negative, that causes the spin to occur. Okay? So everything in nature is in motion. If you see it or don't see it. There's nothing in this universe that is frozen and not moving. Okay, duality. Duality is the state or the quality of being two or in two parts, a dichotomy. Now I love this because this symbol right here is whereas you had one circle and that circle divided into two circles. And this image has been seen all over the world, all throughout antiquity, in Egypt, in Rome, and China. This symbol is known as the Vesica Pisces. It has to do with the two. In the Asia or China is known as the yin and the yang. It's the duality. It's the polarities. It's the positive and the negative. And so when the positive and the negative come together or separate, let me say it separates, and you have this what's right here, the vesica piscis in the middle, it is a wound. So when the positive and the negative come together, I have a question from Sister Daia. Comment? Yes, ma'am. Speak loud enough for the microphone.
Okay. When you said that nothing's frozen, I noticed the chairs there.
The chairs are moving. They're not actually like walking, but they're made up of atoms, right? Right?
Yes,
Are you sure? How do you know they're made up of atoms?
atoms everywhere.
Huh?
Atoms are everywhere.
See, you're so smart. So, are atoms, if you look inside of an atom with a microscope, what's going on inside of an atom? It's moving. You have the things going around. Did you see mine? Oh, let me go back for you. See that?
No.
It's moving like that. Kind of like that. So even though you don't see it, it's still moving. But it's just moving at a low frequency that you can't feel. Yeah. If you get real, real still and you think real, real hard for a long, long time, you'll be able to feel and be one with the
Just
atoms.
think about this day. The chairs are on the earth. What is the earth doing? Right.
Okay, well that's another way to look at it. Okay, so when the positive and the negative separate, you get matter. And see this image right here, the vesica piscis, is also like a wound. It's the same shape of the wound. And so I like this image because it has this sacred geometry pattern, and then it has the universe coming from between it. Now, this is an interesting concept. There's this European philosopher and mathematician named Descartes, Rene Descartes. We talked about him in the earlier times of our lecture. And Rene Descartes comes up with this idea called dualism. Sister Gabrielle, since you're over there talking, can you read that for us, please?
Dualism is the presumption proposed by Rene Descartes that the human mind and body are two distinct entities that interact with each other to make a person. Descartes reasoned that the mind and body communicate with each other through a small structure at the base of the brain called the pineal gland. Creator, God, creation, the spiritual world. Spiritual beings include human beings who are unique as souls, housed in bodies. All human experience and knowledge are on this side, and God is constantly interacting with us here. The physical world, the world around us, which is the proper domain of science because God created the laws in which it discovers and in which God only rarely intervenes. These worlds are distinct but also interactive.
Okay, so Rene Descartes proposed that the universe has a spiritual component and a physical component, okay? And so he said that the human being has a spiritual component and a physical component. And the way that he said is that they communicate, the mind and the body communicate with each other through a small structure at the base of the brain called the pineal gland, okay? So, I want to deal with that right quick. The brain. Now remember we said that Allah created brain first. And the two hemispheres of the brain, right here, you have, this is the right brain and the left brain, okay? And the left brain function is thought to be more masculine. That's what people say. If you think more and you operate more on the left side of your brain, so to speak, you're considered to have more masculine thinking, okay, consciousness. And if you think and function out of the right brain, it's thought to be more feminine. So these are the symbols for masculine and feminine. So, Sister Gabrielle, Demoiselle, could you read the right brain functions, please?
Right brain function. art awareness, creativity, imagination, intuition, insight, holistic thought, music awareness, 3D forms, left hand control.
Okay, Brother Malik, can you see this from over here? Can you read that?
Yes, ma'am. Left brain functions. Analytical thought, logic, language, reasoning, science, and math. Written number skills. Written number skills. Right,
It's supposed to be right
right
hand.
hand
Yeah, that's at the
control.
top.
Right hand control.
Okay, so, would you all agree that these are more the domains that are considered masculine and feminine?
Yes.
No,
I know you would.
Cause she's a left brain.
You're very left brain.
I am very left brain, but I know, I'm gonna say from this standpoint, the men that are, I guess, getting the most, power and control are really right brain, especially in the black community. It's because these are all about artists and things that, you know,
sports and
you know, and then most of the women that you know,
But that goes right to what you said.
yeah, the role.
About the men not really using their minds.
Mhm.
So we've been taken out of, you know, our nature. You know, it's not cool for a black man to be smart, you know, and when he's coming up in school. That's looked on as, you know, I don't know what they call you, I guess a punk. They probably don't call you a nerd, they probably call you punk, weak, whatever. You know, if you're more into your books than you are into other things, you see. And so that's frowned upon in the black community.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, you know, being intelligent, you know, being book smart.
No,
And I-
when you're a male.
When you're male, yeah, but I'll even say this, and I know this may go up online, but I see that a lot within inside the ranks. I remember when I first came in, the people that had a college education, they were talking about it, you know, and say you got that white man's education, and I'm not saying that necessarily isn't true that you had a white man's education, but I think that was a throw off. Once again, a vestige from our thinking that having more, you know, knowledge, having, you know, focusing more on developing your brain was something that was frowned upon, or something that was not embraced. So, you know, that's something that we have to think about within our ranks. Let's just be honest. Let's not try to dance around the issue. And so, you know, you've seen a shift away from it. That's why a person like a Dr. Wesley comes around and he's almost looked at like he's, you know, an anomaly. Because he's actually looking at a scholarly look at the teachings of Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, when prior to 75, I mean, even when I came in, Brother Jabril was teaching us how to study, breaking stuff down, you know, he was going deep in scholarship. Mother Tynetta going deep in scholarship. And prior to that, Malcolm X had an 8th grade education, but he was confounding the scholars at Harvard. So that was the way that we were looked at. We don't, we shouldn't determine how much of a man you are based upon how many papers you sell. You see what I'm saying? How strong is your mind? Because that's where God is produced. Master Fard Muhammad studied for 42 years to come and save us. So you know that there has to be something about developing our minds.
I mean, but the whole thing around what we have is called the teachings. We go to classes. We listen to lectures. So everything is around learning, education,
It is.
knowledge.
It is, but what happened? The same thing that happened out there is happening in here. So we have to get a hold on that. That's why you don't have people attending the self-improvement study groups as we should. That's why you don't have people attending classes like a foundation class as we should.
Yeah.
So let's just be honest. We have to get a hold of this, arrest this before it becomes something that is gonna be very, very difficult to reverse. Okay, now let's move on, because our time has dwindled, but I'm gonna take my few minutes and finish this out. So y'all just go ahead and sit down. We don't have anybody else here with us. Okay, pituitary and pineal gland. So, the pituitary, the pineal gland and duality. Now, you see, the pineal gland is located in the middle of the brain. Interesting little place. And there's some interesting stuff about the pineal gland. The pineal gland actually has something on it that looks like an eyelid. It's a little flap that opens and closes. Y'all hear me while y'all over there talking? It opens and closes, a flap
My mouth can use for
on the pineal gland. But check it out. You see how deep this is into the brain? It's in the middle of the brain. But you know what opens and closes that flap? Sunlight. It responds to sunlight. How can it respond to sunlight that deep in your brain? The sunlight doesn't even reach it. That's the same place that,
This one responds to sunlight and close your eyes.
man,
Because they say, you know, your eyes are a window to, I'm gonna say to your brain, because we know you see with your brain. So do you have to have your eyes open for that flap to work? Or can you be like, say for instance, like if you didn't like that?
no, I think that it's, you know, it's all over your skin and
Because
whatnot.
we have many sunlight receptors and a lot of all up in our skin.
Yeah.
Yes, up in our skin.
And so that's just an interesting thing. But this gland, this gland right here, the pineal gland, it's found in the middle of the brain. And the other thing about it is that it's right here. The pineal gland is located between the epithalamus near the center of the brain, between the two hemispheres, tucked in a groove where the two halves of the thalamus are joined. So where the two, going back here, is located between. There are no other glands within the brain that are located, that are actually in between, and they join the two hemispheres. And as it said here, that Descartes looked at this, did it say it here? But he looked at the pineal gland as the seat of the soul. And you know in the Holy Quran it talks about that Allah has a throne on many waters. Some people even think that this pineal gland is the way that you exit and enter the body. It regulates your sleep cycles, your circadian cycles. It produces serotonin, the thing that causes you to go to sleep. It also produces melatonin, which activate the melanocytes, their cells in your skin that cause your skin to become brown, to tan. So this is a master gland right here that actually regulates many, many things, and people believe that that's, if there's a location to the soul, that that's where the seat of the soul is. Some people believe it's a gateway, okay? So I want to talk about the duality because it actually connects both parts, or is between both hemispheres of the brain. Now, we talked about that in the human body, that the number of cells are very nearly equal to the number, you like that?
Yeah, that's
Yes, it was nice. To the number of cells in the human body. And I did the research. And from one cell of life, or atom of life, to 76 to 100 trillion cells. It is estimated here, it says, that the human body is 75 trillion cells. Cell shapes vary depending on their function. Cell parts are also very dependent upon the requirement. And so, just think about it. That's where our history is contained within ourselves, within our DNA. So if we ever went into ourselves like the originator did, we would be able to bring up from ourselves all these things that are hidden within ourselves. So, you know, it's all written in us. We don't need to go somewhere else. It was said that Master Fard Muhammad would go in the pyramids and that he would stand for long periods of time, for hours, just stand there. And that in that standing, I talked to someone and they said that actually the people in the Far East have a practice of martial arts where they just stand for long periods of time. And the pyramids are actually, they're on these energy centers or vortex, where when you get into that space, you are able to begin to energize yourself, and then you can start probably accessing this information contained, you know, these libraries of wisdom contained within your own self. We are the universe. So, the history of the universe is written inside of man. Again here, this is Most Honorable Allah. No, this is what they said of this trillions of years. I mean, trillions of cells. No, this is Most Honorable Allah Muhammad. I just didn't put his attribution down there. Again, we don't say to the star that is 100 trillion years probably back out there to come out and show itself. There's already forces out there going to bring them into view. He's saying that there's a force that brings these objects out of hiding into view. He says, so we have these things in space just by view. So he's saying that there are stars that are 100 trillion years old, which go right along with what the enemy says about there being 100 trillion cells within the human body. It cannot be coincidental. It can't be. And then the 75 trillion cells, it can't be coincidental. There has to be a correlation between the number of cells in our body and the history that we're told that we have. Now, these, I wanted to deal with the whole concept of matter, and I'm going to quickly go over this because we dealt with this before. But matter, yes ma'am.
Question.
Yes.
So, say for instance, from the beginning into year one, we only have one cell?
Well, according to what we're saying, told, a single cell.
So what I'm saying, no, what I'm saying is like after the complete first man as we know it today was made, he only had as many cells as there were years of the universe. So
No.
are you saying every year we get more cells in the human body than we had last year?
I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying that there probably is not a there probably is a correlation. But you remember we were looking for a perfected man? So maybe there was some kind of, I'm saying this from the standpoint of the written history. Okay? I'm not saying this from the standpoint of just the years per se.
Right.
That the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that the universe could only hold 76 trillion years of history. Didn't mean that that was all the history that existed. And I'm saying that there has to be a requisite number of cells to make a human being and not something else.
Right, and I'm just saying that correlation only works now. It
No,
didn't
but
work.
what I'm saying, it could have been the first man could have had 76 trillion cells in him, or 100 trillion cells in him. But it took that long to perfect, or to have a person that was born that actually could be perfect. The first human being probably did have at least that many cells in it, but it just took that long. That was the history. You remember, we write our history in advance, right? And then we walk into it. So that could have been correlated to the time that it would take for this perfect man to come into existence. Is that okay with you?
It was a nice, that was a good one.
Okay. Thank you so very much for approving that.
I ain't gonna make it easy.
Ma'am?
I think like this. I told you, I'm left for it.
It's okay, I am too, so we're working together. I have a little more right than you, but. So anyway, I want to deal with the whole concept of matter, okay? From this positive and this negative, when the separation occurs, then you get spin. then you get this matter to begin to start being created. And so matter, I just really want to deal with the whole concept of matter. The word matter actually deals with the word mother. Matter and mother are synonymous, and also the word matrix. So when you get the mother, when you get the woman, the womb, then what we call matter is starting to develop from that womb, a material universe. So that's why she's the secret to the kingdom of heaven, and she also contains the secrets of the universe within her. Okay, so this again is talking about those cells divided, and this is the sources that you can get it from. The cell division from 1 to 100 trillion cells. I can't really see that over there. Could somebody read for us over here?
The human body contains 100 trillion cells. There is a nucleus inside each human cell except red blood cells. Each nucleus contains 46 chromosomes arranged in 23 pairs. One chromosome of every pair is from each parent. The chromosomes are filled with tightly coiled strands of DNA. Genes are segments of DNA that contain instructions to make proteins, the building blocks of life.
And calculating the number of cells in the human body is tricky, they say. Part of the problem is that using different metrics, you get very different outcomes. Guessing based upon volume gets you an estimation of about 15 trillion cells. Estimated by weight, it says here in this article, that you end up with 70 trillion cells. So there are different spreads between 75, and 100 trillion cells. So there are different articles that are dealing with that. We have trillions of cells in our bodies, and I'm proposing that also has to do with the history that's being written in us. That we're looking for history outside of us, but the history is actually in us. And so we have these two wombs.
Wait, what?
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, quite literally, our DNA is our ancestral history. That's how they can tell you. You go to ancestry.com, they can tell you where your forefathers came from by reading your DNA. So it literally is your history.
Yeah, it's a language. It actually has a language in DNA. It's a code. But what I'm suggesting is that actually the libraries that we're looking for, the hidden libraries are actually contained within us, inside of our DNA. Okay? There are some people, and I'm not going too far on this wise, but saying that we actually have dormant strands of DNA within us that have been, they're lying dormant, waiting to be activated. And I heard Minister Aiden say this years and years ago, and we have 12 strands of DNA within us, but the other ones are dormant. So, and I think that might be the hidden history.
I mean, again, whatever's in there, it is history. It can tell you a story.
Yeah,
Just like, they solved whole crime
that's right.
based on genetic information and left, and then
Forensic science.
there's a whole science behind it, and it's a post act thing that they do to reconstruct
Post-mortem.
not
Post-mortem.
more Popish, they got 2 live parents on them, but they can tell you a history what you did with this person based upon. So it is history, just as a autobiography.
Yeah. So just think about everything you need to know is in you.
History is not only it's not always this narrative that's straight through, but artifact in museums when they have an ancient pipe, that's history. Just as well as DNA. It's not a book. It's not in a book form, but it tells you something about time that's passed.
Well, I'm suggesting that within us is in book form, if we understood, just like the prophet was told, peace be upon him, read in the name of our Lord. There was no book in the cave, and then he couldn't read that kind of history. I mean, those kind of books.
You can read his DNA.
I I'm not talking about from that not from a literal standpoint, Sister Gabrielle. I'm talking about from a really going inside of yourself, just like the original God went inside of himself and discovered things in himself. And that's why this course that we have called self-improvement, and it's really just like a kindergarten course for us to start looking inside of ourselves for the answer instead of looking on the outside for answers. And that all the answers that we seek are actually within us. And that's the ancient wisdom of the people that stole it from Africa, so-called Plato and Socrates. Know thyself, heal thyself. All of these things, they understood that it began within self. Okay?
Like Allah said in the Quran, I forget which verse it in, but it's in Surah 2, the second Surah. Allah said, He's inherent in all of His creation, but He's not confined in none of it.
The way you say it, it always sounds like some, saying from Buddha or something. You just have this way of saying stuff that just sounds so serene and peaceful. The way you recite the Quran.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Even in
But
English.
I remember stuff like that during the course of you speaking, or anybody speaking.
Yes, it comes because it's in you. Yes. That's beautiful. But yeah, he's inherent in everything, but not contained in anything. That's what you say?
Confined.
Not
Confined.
confined.
Not confined.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. That is really beautiful. Okay. So I want to go back to the two wombs. Of course, you have the womb of the mind, which is the first womb, and then you have the womb. You have the womb of space, which is the first womb. Then you have the mind, which is the second womb, which out of which Allah produced the second self. He produced her from out of his own thinking after he went inside of himself, and he produced something, a second self, that could actually do the same thing that he did in himself, but he cut down the time, and he, of course, made it such that it was a very efficient process. So the female was able to do what he is able to do what he has done with life. She's a co-creator with Allah. Okay. And here, the divine nature and value of the woman. Sister Gabrielle, could you read that for us, please?
Almighty God created everything out of the dark womb of space, everything. And he gives you a womb that resembles the darkness of space out of which everything is created. Man doesn't have a womb, it's you, woman. And what is your womb for? Your womb is the workshop of God. Every king, every ruler, every prophet, every wise man or woman, every scientist, every general, every person of God came through the womb of a woman. And the most precious womb was the womb of Mary. Her womb was the worship of God. Her womb was the worship of God because God from her womb produced that one which would reconcile the whole world of humanity back to himself.
And that's powerful. I mean, and if you see, when you see a woman carrying life, I mean, I know we take it for granted, but literally, she really is the co-creator with God.
This all.
I mean, we
That's
really take it for granted.
Yeah.
No life, no human life can exist except it comes through the womb of a female. And what little reverence or even respect, one, we give for the process of producing life. Two, for the human being that would take on the awesome task of carrying life.
Yeah.
You understand? And then what the woman goes through in order to give birth to that life. And then the love that is necessary to be able to nurture that life.
Yeah.
I mean, little it is that we really think about that.
Yeah.
And so the minister said that the woman is not the second self of man. She is the second self of God. He looked in himself and saw the best part of himself and brought that part forward.
Yeah.
He brought the part of himself that's love and mercy and nurturing out of himself to humanity, to give that to humanity through a female. And the woman is so disrespected today. When we can see things like what happened with the lady in McDonald's, or see videos where women are disrespecting themselves and we're okay with that. We're not telling the black woman especially who she is, how powerful she is, how much we diminish what a woman can do. They can't reproduce it in a laboratory.
I mean, they can't reproduce sperm either. I said they can't reproduce sperm either.
But I'm talking about carrying a life. That's a life. You can get the cells to divide, but at that point, it's not life yet, as we know it. You understand what I'm saying? And nowhere in the universe can you produce human life. But look at how we treat the female. There is something that's so messed up in our thinking that we would disrespect the female and reduce her down to something less than a female dog. That we really have to, we have to come back to ourselves, and there's nobody that's really teaching this, except you would find in a mosque, Muhammad mosque, any Muhammad mosque all over the planet that's teaching the respect for the female.
Yeah.
In the church, there's an inherent disrespect for the female because the white man taught, us that Eve was responsible for the fall of humanity.
Yeah.
So from that story, from that narrative, the white man has been disrespecting the female since he's been here.
Yeah.
And we've taken on that same mindset. I'm not saying worship the black woman or worship the female, but give reverence to the womb.
Yeah.
Because the womb is through how all human life comes. And so what I'm just really suggesting to us that, and I think this is my last slide, that we have to really reevaluate how we as women look at ourselves and the value that we have to the universe. And the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said that the vaginal tract is a sacred, he said it's a sacred channel.
Yeah.
And he said we have to be so careful of how we handle ourselves, because we're talking about literally. We're talking about, bringing life into this universe through that vaginal tract, and that it is, really the gateway to another dimension. When the baby's in the womb, it's not in this dimension. It's a stargate, if you will, literally. And we don't even think about it. Now, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and close us out here. You remember I showed you the Vesica Pisces. Let me go back to it. And everything, here it is. There's significance in these signs that we see, that are religious signs. This Vesica Pisces, I want you to look at the shape. It's kind of shaped like a almond shape, right? And this is when the atom, or the duality, the positive and the negative, separate and you create matter. And this is also around the shape of the vagina, if you will, not to get vulgar, but it's a gateway into another dimensionality. But just so happens that the symbol, one of the most sacred symbols of Islam, has a very similar shape. And then you see that the way that they encase the black stone is like an opening.
Yeah.
And so this building, this mosque that's covered over with this black, the kishwa, this black covering, it's called El Beit Allah. It's called the House of Allah.
Yeah.
But we know that this building is not the House of Allah. We know that this building represents the House of Allah, but it's covered in a black veil. And this black veil represents the black man and woman, but in particular, and I'm not saying this to be, have black supremacy or whatnot, but this is what Imam Sabri told me, that when you're making your Hajj, that when you're circumambulating around the Kaaba, said that there is Hagar's tomb that's going to be in the courtyard. And it is said, if you go in between Hagar's tomb and you go between the Kaaba, then your Hajj is annulled. It is voided. You have to go around Hagar's tomb and circumambulate. Then do your 7 circuits to touch the black stone. But the thing about it is that Hagar was the black woman that Abraham had his child with. And that represents something significant according to Imam Sabri. He said that if you come in between the black woman and God, that your actual trip back to God, back to the Qibla, back to your source, will be disannulled. So anybody who comes in between the black woman and God actually voids themselves out. So think about that. How important is she? That God will annul or disavow your actual Hajj if you come in between those two places. So that's heavy. That's heavy.
That's showing up here.
Yeah, that's heavy.
I've never heard that before.
Imam Sabri told me that when he came back from Hajj.
But that seemed like it's credible.
Yes, but that's what he said, and then it's covered in this black cloth. But I want to end up here with this picture. It's this drone footage. Now, when the cell in the first cell in the that comes together, or when a cell is animated, when the sperm and the egg come together, it begins to rotate. But the rotation is in a certain orientation. The rotation is always counterclockwise, okay? It goes this way. So does the spirals of the arm of the galaxies, the solar system. Everything goes counterclockwise. Now the white man, on our clock over there, they call it clockwise. So everything goes this way. But everything in nature, when it rotates, it goes this way. Okay, including the cell itself, counterclockwise. And if you look,
I mean, you right, everybody else right that way from.
that's right.
Right.
But the white man is not a natural man. He reverses everything. So with this drone footage, this footage of at the Kaaba where they're making Hajj, you see that we do the exact same thing. When we make our Hajj, we move in a counterclockwise rotation, which produces an energy force. Okay, well, the counterclockwise movement, but this is the last thing I want to say in us closing. We are making, when we make a Hajj, we're going in this counterclockwise rotation. You all listening? We're going in this counterclockwise rotation. Okay, and anytime something is moving, it creates energy, right? And so we all, as we're making our circumambulation around the Kaaba, we're supposed to be thinking a certain thought. All supposed to be our goal is to touch that black stone, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you have 1 million people or more in one place with one thought on their mind to touch that black stone, and that black stone represents us.
Yeah.
We are the stone that the builders rejected. The whole of the Muslim world, the whole Kaaba, the whole pilgrimage is a representative of us.
Yeah.
Of them, of us going around giving energy, reanimating the original man. And the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said he touched the black stone, he kissed the black stone, but he knew that that represented him. So this whole ritual, if we look at it, deals with the black man and the black woman, and really us coming back to ourselves. Elevate Allah, the house of Allah is us.
No.
Allah lives in us.
Yeah.
He moves through us. And the relationship between God and the black woman is a sacred relationship that's represented in this whole ritual of Hajj. So the black woman being the second self of God and how it is depicted in these rituals is absolutely, Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad is absolutely on point, 100%.
Yeah.
So the black woman is the second self of Allah. I won't go any further, but
That was one of the main things that attracted me to Islam. The emphasis that it put on the female. Yeah.
And why so?
Because I saw females getting mistreated when I was coming up.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so what aspects of, because a lot of people look at Islam and how women are treated, it's not so much as now, but they used to say when women are...
Some Islamic countries go overboard with the trying to address or trying to accommodate the command Allah put on them about the female protection. You know, like Saudi Arabia, one time they didn't allow a woman or female to drive.
They just allowed
within the last 2 years.
Yeah, and so
I don't
that
have
was
a problem with that personally, but
so that's you
that's
know
the same
they
thing,
used
it's
to
not slavery.
bury girl
they
babies
give you a
alive.
driver. They give you a driver. I'm sorry.
So
They
what do
used
you want to get away
to
from
bury girl babies alive before
that's
the
true.
time of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, and women couldn't inherit. Yeah.
That's interesting that attracted you to Islam because, you know, being that you came through a different tradition, if you will.
Yeah.
Where did you see that, the elevation of the black woman in the community that you joined initially?
No, the reading in the Holy Quran.
Wow,
And
that's beautiful.
The tradition of Prophet Muhammad,
That's beautiful.
called the Hadith. Yeah.
That's beautiful. That you actually got that through actually reading and studying yourself.
Yeah.
Awesome.
No.
You're fantastic. You're awesome, Rosa. May Allah continue to bless you as we
You too, sister.
thank you, sir. As we grow in the light of His understanding, I'd like to greet you as I came before you. As-salamu alaykum.
Supreme wisdom, some call it the lessons, but I call it life, actual facts, no guessing.